Hello, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby. I'm Liv, your often friendly neighborhood myth nerd. And guys, I'm back with a mini myth. And not only am I back with a mini myth today, I'm back with what is hopefully a plan for a great many future mini myths. The goal here, provided nothing in my life explodes, is to start releasing a mini myth on the off weeks from the regular episodes, meaning you'll finally have one episode a week again. And to start things off, I'm doing the first in a specific series. The ancient Greeks found a way to explain so many natural phenomena of the world, and the constellations in the night sky are no different. So, I plan to cover the myths of each of the zodiac sign constellations, and later just general constellations that based in Greek myths, which are, well, most of them. The Greeks believed that a great many mythological characters were placed in the sky as a kind of thanks or sometimes punishment for their lives on Earth. They became constellations that we still refer to today. And in many cases, constellations which the signs of the zodiac are based on. It's fucking fascinating, obviously. So just in time for Scorpio, I give you Mini Myth, Constellations, Orion and the Scorpion. There's a man by the name of Orion, and he is a son of Poseidon. He's famous for being an incredibly talented hunter and super fucking hot. Robert Graves describes him as the handsomest man alive. Orion is also the lover of Eos, who is a titan and the personification of the dawn. Orion's skill in hunting comes from how fast and how light-footed he is. He can avoid being detected and move at incredible speeds. And not only that, but his father, Poseidon, also gave him the ability to walk on water. Dude is pretty fucking impressive. But so often in Greek mythology, an impressive dude is also an awful dude. Orion is traveling, and on the island of Chios. There he drank far too much, which is of course not an excuse, but is provided as such in this book. And while crazy drunk, he rapes the princess of that island. Orion's punishment is to be blinded. Now other versions of this story give the added details that the princess's name was Merope, which I'm pronouncing like in Harry Potter, but is probably more like Merope, and that her father, a name I'm not going to try to pronounce, is actually in love with her and went to great lengths to keep Orion from marrying her. When Orion does get drunk and rape her, again not an excuse, this was when her father, in anger, blinded him. The point, though, is that he's blinded and he does in fact leave Chios and Merope and her father. As a powerful man in ancient Greece, his punishment can't possibly last forever. Orion uses a local boy to help guide him east, and when the sun rises the next day, his blindness is cured. This is the work of Eos, Orion's lover, and the dawn herself. Eos, it seems, is perhaps a little wrapped up in the patriarchal world in which she's forced to live, and so she doesn't think to herself, hey, I bet I can do better than this asshole that rapes a girl, gets blinded for it, and then uses me to cure his blindness. Plenty of fish in the sea, as this awful dude's awful father would probably say. But now, Eos has cured Orion, and with his functional eyes, he travels to Crete. There he meets Artemis, who's impressed by his skill. She does love a good hunt, and so meeting someone who's nearly as good as her at it would obviously be a thrill. So the pair decide to go hunting together. The hunting that Orion and Artemis plan to do is to help the people of Crete. The shepherds and farmers are being plagued by beasts and monsters that are decimating their crops and wildlife. Orion and Artemis are there to help. And for a while, they're doing well, Orion particularly so. But of course he's one of those guys, and so this success begins to go to Orion's head. He starts to brag. He walks around telling anyone who will listen that there's no beast in the world that he can't kill with his spear or his arrows. Why does anyone ever brag like that in ancient Greece? It's just never, ever a good idea. Zeus hears Orion's boasting and is angry. There's nothing specifically here that would anger Zeus, but it seems he just likes ego, epically ironic as that may be. He doesn't like when people are showy, especially when he can easily test their showiness, which is exactly what he does. Zeus decides to test this man who is oh so high on himself, and so he sends down to earth a giant scorpion. And this is where I question everything I said in the most recent Patreon episode where I discussed Clash of the Titans and went on quite the rant about why would there be giant scorpions in this world, and anyway, I was wrong. Zeus sends down a giant scorpion. Again, another version of this story suggests that it's actually Apollo who sends the scorpion down to Orion. In that version, Orion is a threat to Artemis. Apollo believes he will seduce his sister with his skill in hunting, and that she may have the same fate as Merope. In a fit of brotherly love, Apollo sends the scorpion to do away with Orion. In either case, a massive scorpion is not at all what Orion was expecting as he travels to the Greek countryside, killing creatures of a normal size. Shockingly, he's no match for this monster sent down by Zeus. All it takes is a single flick of the scorpion's poisonous, stingy tail before Orion has been killed. Yet again, there's another version of this that suggests that Apollo actually tricks Artemis into killing Orion herself. He convinces her that she's shooting a man who's just seduced one of Artemis's priestesses, so naturally she would wish to punish him. In this confusion, she shoots an arrow which hits Orion in the head, killing him immediately. In both cases, though, Orion has been killed and has attempted to fight a scorpion. So he's placed in the sky as a constellation, being perpetually pursued by the scorpion. And he, Orion, is perpetually pursuing the Pleiades, nymphs devoted to Artemis who, we're told, Orion had lusted after his entire life. These women were placed in the sky as stars after 7 years of being endlessly chased and lusted after by our friend Orion. How often is a woman transformed into something she probably doesn't want to be just so she can escape a horny and awful man? And after all that, in the end, he's placed up there with them. They can never get away from old Orion, a classy, classy man living up in the stars forever, famous mostly for his belt, which doesn't actually play into this story. Well, friends, thus begins the constellations. We've got Orion, the Pleiades, Scorpio. I'll be honest, other than knowing that I'm a Cancer, I have never paid much attention to the zodiac or astrology in general. But, shocker, what I do love is that most of the constellations are based on stories from Greek mythology. And usually ones like this. Is it punishment to be in the sky forever? Is it an honor? Who can tell? As I mentioned at the top, with any luck, this will be an off-week thing. Whenever I don't have a regular episode for you, I'll have a mini one to tide you all over. Thanks so much for listening. As usual, I'd be eternally grateful if you'd rate and review this podcast. That is, if you enjoyed it. If you just want to yell about how I don't like men or how I ignore the historical context for women being raped and treated like garbage constantly, you can keep that in your own little mind because, man, does it sound like it sucks in there. You're all the best. I'm Liv. I love this shit.